I have absolutely nothing to say whatsoever, and yet I will make it seem like I do.
B2B services
and operating excellence.
A headcount that you need to be considered a disruptor in your marketplace.
There's an ownership stake in an underlying network.
It had a very leveraged effect.
Welcome to the Dejargonizer. I'm your host, Amir Mizrach. In this podcast, I speak to startup founders. I subject myself to their tech jargon to try and decipher what their company really does. I do this to find out if there's a bigger story there that matters to broader audiences, like you. You may have seen some pretty negative headlines about the cryptocurrency industry. Things like scams, fraud, theft, hacking. But it's important to remember that these issues are not inherent to the blockchain technology itself. Today, we're joined by Adi Ben-Ari. He's the founder and CEO of Applied Blockchain. His argument is, listen, people are people and they're going to do bad things. And he's right. It's not like there aren't any scams and thefts in traditional finance, right? So this episode isn't about crypto. It's about the blockchain itself. What is it? How is it built? How does it work? And what kind of applications can be run on it? It's time to separate the bad press about cryptocurrency from the groundbreaking potential of blockchain technology.
It's difficult but simple, okay?
You started a company back in 2015 called Applied Blockchain. I'm going to read out what it says on Applied Blockchain's About Us LinkedIn page.
Okay.
All right? This is going to hurt. Applied Blockchain is one of the most experienced teams in the industry building products on blockchains, including Ethereum and Algorand, and having delivered more than 100 blockchain platforms that range from NFT marketplaces to DeFi and Web3 applications. We are also developing the next generation of blockchain infrastructure products, including a privacy-preserving data oracle. I'm going to say that again because I love it so much. A privacy-preserving data oracle for tokenizing real-world assets and identities, and a solution that bridges Algorand with Ethereum and other EMV chains. I'm almost done. For cross-chain asset transfers. Wow. Okay, I want to try and just figure out why anyone who's not a crypto bro would care about Applied Blockchain and what it's doing. Can you tell me a little bit about how you started the company, why you started the company?
Yeah, of course. So I started the company because I looked at the technology. At the time, Ethereum had just been published, so the network hadn't gone live, but the Ethereum blockchain software was available and I started playing with it.
Sorry, this is different from the original blockchain. This is the Ethereum blockchain. This is another blockchain.
Correct. Blockchain is the name used for the technology, and crypto is manifestation of that technology for creating digital assets and open networks. So the original blockchain was Bitcoin. Bitcoin didn't do very much. It just had Bitcoins, and you could transfer them between your account and your friend's account. That's really most of what you can do on it.
Or you could buy drugs, guns.
That's if somebody was willing to send you something if you transferred Bitcoins to their account. But as a blockchain, it's just about transferring coins from one account to another.
Tokens, coins, digital information.
Well, actually Bitcoins.
Bitcoins.
That's really all it does.
Okay.
And then Ethereum came along, and Ethereum allowing people to build applications on top of these digital currency.
Applications other than Bitcoin.
Other than just the coins, the coin itself.
Okay.
And these applications became known as smart contracts. When I looked at this, it blew my mind. I could see the technical efficiency that could be achieved in payments, but in particular in trading.
Adi, what is the opposite of a smart contract? Is it a dumb contract?
The name is not the greatest. Is not easy. It's really just a set of code rules that dictate what will happen to these tokens and when. People had paper ledgers, right? And then we had spreadsheets, and then we had databases. We thought databases were great. They brought a tremendous level of efficiency to our financial institutions. This is an evolution in computer science.
Okay.
So we've got this way of storing who owns our stuff, our digital stuff. That's this secure infrastructure layer called a blockchain. Then on top of that, we can run these applications. Think of them as like the iPhone apps. So let's say, Amir, you've got a house and you want to sell it to me, and I've got money and I want to buy that house. We each have a lawyer, and the lawyer has their customer account, and I transfer the funds, and they check the land registry, and your lawyer waits for the transmission of funds from it's a 3-month process. If you've ever been through it, it's a nightmare.
I have.
So if we have digital tokens that represent money, and we have digital tokens that represent the house, then you can send your house into this application, the smart contract. I can send my money into the smart contract. The smart contract has some coded rules that we can both see that say, if I've got the house and I've got the money, then I'll send the house to the buyer and the money to the seller. Otherwise, I'll give them both their money and their asset back. And that's it. That's all it can do.
Adi, maybe this is happening on the blockchain Ethereum house contracts, but most of it, what I'm hearing and seeing that's happening on these programs are not house transactions. They're currency transactions.
I'm talking about the technology, right? People are people. People will take it and do what they want with it. People took the blockchain, and the biggest use of it in the beginning was porn. That doesn't mean that the internet is useless.
Okay.
People will do bad things. People do bad things on the internet. You're talking about digital money.
Yeah.
So of course people are going to go nuts with it, and they do. And the other side of it is that the poor consumer or investor finds it very difficult to understand what's behind it, what's secure, what isn't, what's fraud, what isn't.
So I want to ask you, if there's that much fraud and there's that much confusion and jargon, why should a broader business audience, or just a broader audience who's interested in how, tech affects the future and how things evolve, why should we be looking at the blockchain space?
The reason is because of the technical efficiency. The reason why banks moved on to spreadsheets and then moved on to databases is because they could run 100 times faster, 100 times cheaper, 100 times more securely, more efficiently, and so on.
Okay.
The blockchain is the best technology infrastructure that we have available to us today in order to trade. There is, at the moment, no more efficient technical way of trading than a blockchain.
So your clients include Shell, the oil company, which is also an investor in your company. And why would an oil company want to invest in a blockchain company is interesting. Your other clients include KLM, the airline, and the United Nations. What is applied blockchain building for these companies?
So Shell has a team which trade on its behalf, right? So Shell is a group of companies, and they each produce and deal with different types of energy. There's oil, gas, there's renewables, and so on. They're all over the world. They're different places that are producing, that are shipping, that are moving, that are holding, that are providing to consumers, and so on. Imagine if you're an entity that's holding some oil and you know that someone's going to take it off you in 3 weeks' time, you're going to be exposed to the movement of the price in 3 weeks, because that's when you're going to get paid, or maybe you'll get paid after delivery, and so on. So there's a need to use financial instruments to offset the risk of the price movements.
And I'm wondering if, over the past year of big and severe geopolitical risk, has that something that they've been kind of more interested in managing through the blockchain?
I mean, the blockchain is something that they came to us to explore. As traders, they saw the blockchain technology as something that could potentially change the way that they manage their activity and potentially make it more efficient.
And with KLM, the airline, and the United Nations, are you able to talk a little bit about?
The UN has a number of projects that we've been involved in. Probably the most famous and successful one is called Building Blocks, and it's a program for transferring funds to refugees in refugee camps. And the first deployment was in Jordan for the refugees that were coming from Syria.
And it's easier to track these payments and flows on the blockchain because...
So they use it primarily as a ledger between the agencies, because then they can track like you say, the numbers, the accounts more easily. And in the future, they could potentially open it up to allow people to redeem the aid in different ways, right? In more efficient ways.
Okay.
And that's part of what they've done here. So in building blocks, they have the shops in the refugee camps, which enable people to receive the food through identity recognition. They actually use iris scans. And then the shop automatically will give the person the food, and then it will be deducted from their account, and there's no need for card payment or anything like that.
But it says here that you are developing the next generation of blockchain infrastructure products. How is the infrastructure products that you're building different from the applications that you're building?
Okay, it's a good question. So I guess the blockchain itself is a kind of layer where you have the asset records, the accounts, and then the apps run on top. Right? Again, a bit like the iPhone applications. We're providing some infrastructure for the blockchain to connect to things outside of it. So we talked about Ethereum and Algorand as two different blockchains. They're different technologies. They don't know how to talk to each other. But you might have your house on one and I've got my money on the other, and we still want to trade.
How does that work in terms of talking to each other? What does that technically mean?
So a blockchain can't easily trust something that happens outside of the blockchain. We have various techniques for dealing with it. And those techniques kind of extend the trust of the blockchain, the technical trust, to those other places.
Tell me in the most basic language, one of these techniques, just basically, how does it actually connect?
The biggest hacks that were happening were people compromising bridges. And bridges are the connectors between blockchains.
And this is an area that you and your company are focusing on.
We've built and experimented with all the different types of technologies that are out there. We use a technology it's actually from Intel. It's called Intel SGX.
SGX stands for?
Secure Guard Extensions.
Nice.
Imagine inside the Intel processor, there's another box. And that box, we call it a secure enclave. And whatever you put in there can't get out. Can only get out under certain circumstances. So you can do things in there which even someone who has access to the machine can't get into.
Okay, so we're talking about the blockchain infrastructure products like these bridges.
Yes.
You're building these infrastructure projects, including a privacy-preserving data oracle for tokenizing real-world assets. Let's go one by one. Privacy-preserving, we know that on the blockchain, you're anonymous. So is that part of it?
That's given on the blockchain. So on the blockchain, you just get an account, which is a number. Nobody knows who's behind it. People can have a go at guessing. So you have anonymity, but you don't have privacy. One of the good things about the blockchain is you can see everything. So you can see all the accounts, you can see their balances, you can see all the transfers. That's why you can be certain about the history and things happening correctly as you'd expect them to. But that's also a problem. I don't really want all my competitors to see all the payments going in and out of my business.
Right.
There's an element of privacy that people need in certain situations. We're trying to connect data that's outside the blockchain with things that are happening on the blockchain.
When you say data outside of the blockchain, can you give me an example?
Yeah, let me give an example. So first of all, let me tell you why we're doing this, right? All these assets, or most of the assets that you see at the moment, they're what we call digital assets, cryptocurrencies. So people have invented them. You can't use crypto without blockchain. Now, the problem is with the digital assets, they're native to the blockchain. They're born there and you can see them. With an asset that comes from outside the blockchain, like a house, how do you know it's really linked to the house? So you need to be able to link to
the deed. Like a deed that's been signed.
Exactly. You need some sort of source of data or some sort of authority that is the authority for the ownership of that asset. The same is true again if we start looking at financing. So if I want to lend to someone through the blockchain, then I might want to be able to check a source of data sources, credit records, credit history, bank accounts, all sorts of other things to know who am I dealing with.
If we just pause for a second and, I kind of keep going back to this question of why should anyone outside of this small world care about this and it seems like you're saying in the future, whether it's in the near future or further down, we're going to be doing a lot more real world stuff through the blockchain because it's more efficient and secure, but we're not there yet. This is why you should keep your eyes on the blockchain.
Yeah, if you ask a computer scientist that's at a university that's dealt with the blockchain, they will confirm to you that the technical efficiency is there. The tokenization of assets is the direction that they're expecting things to go.
Tokenization is a process where some form of assets are converted into a token that can be moved, stored, or recorded on a blockchain. The process of tokenization simply means to digitally represent an asset in the form of a token, to put real-world assets like a land or a house on the blockchain.
And that's where a lot of the problem is. But I think there is also a problem if the financial institutions just act as a closed group as well. Because this idea that you can trust a group more than you can trust a single entity, it depends on the dynamic of the group. In crypto, the dynamic should be, in a blockchain like Ethereum, that gives anybody can host and become a member.
I think I understand a little bit more what these infrastructure products are. I think I'm also starting to understand the privacy preserving part of it. What I don't get is, what is the data oracle? When I think of Oracle, I think of the company Oracle, which is, a big computer company that does switches and databases. And I think of the Greek Oracle, which is something completely different. So what is a data oracle?
So a data oracle is a mechanism, like a piece of infrastructure that allows the blockchain to receive data from outside.
This is the bridge you mentioned.
The bridge is more a term that's used to connect two blockchains to each other. If I'm a blockchain and I want to know something about some data, some information that's stored outside of the blockchain, I need a way to receive and trust that information. And an oracle is the technical term for the solution that would give me that.
Yeah, but why Oracle?
That's just the technical term that's...
that Oracle came up with?
No, I think it's more related to the Greek. There's some information that's been announced, and can we trust it?
That's actually been very helpful, because when I look at this paragraph again, we're developing a next generation of blockchain infrastructure product, including a privacy-preserving data oracle for tokenizing real-world assets and identities, for cross-chain asset transfers. I'm starting to, I think, understand that the original blockchain for Bitcoin was the original, then came Ethereum, and where you, an applied blockchain, your company is focusing is on these bridges, these oracles in between, so that these on-chain, off-chain, or intra-chain transactions can speak to each other, transact digitally in a secure and privacy-preserving way. That's
correct. So we develop apps as well. We develop apps on these blockchains, and we develop the products, which are these infrastructure that connect blockchains to other things, other blockchains or data sources outside the blockchain. That's correct.
I think that a lot of listeners will have seen or heard news from the crypto space over the past year and decided that the whole thing is a Wild West scam. In a lot of people's minds, the game's up, it's over for crypto. Is it over for the blockchain too?
There's a general consensus that the technology is efficient. The problem at the moment is the actors, right? If you look at crypto and how people treat crypto, they're generally talking about the actors in the crypto space. And that's problematic. It's obviously not very regulated. There's some people you talk about in the blockchain space that might think that, it's decentralized technologies are going to take over everything. It's like any technology. It's good at some things and it's not great at others. It's not good for storing information in general. I see people talk about blockchain for medical records. It makes me scream. Why would you put data into a place where it gets distributed to a group? It's a terrible place to store sensitive data. And it's not efficient. You're now storing it in 100 places instead of storing it in one. What it's good for is storing data that you don't want changed, or storing proof of that information that you don't want changed.
Well, I don't want my health data changed.
It's data that you don't want anybody to be able to easily change, but it doesn't protect access to that data. So that's why it's great for asset ownership records. That's what it does. What it doesn't do is it doesn't protect who's going to be able to see that, because it's transparent and it's distributed. But if I put my health record on a blockchain, like a regular blockchain today, everybody will be able to see my health records.
Seriously?
Yeah. I mean, the blockchains are transparent. So, for example, I need to know that assets have come in to the contract, the house has come in, and the money's come in before I transfer both. So we need visibility of that in order for that app to work. But we don't need to know, how many windows and things the house has. That doesn't all have to be stored on a blockchain. What we can do, and this is some of the technology we're working with, we can have proof about that information.
That it's there.
That it exists.
And let's say investor audience, broad business audience wants to look at this kind of information from time to time just to see what's going on. What should they be looking for?
The way the application is encoded is code. It can only do what's written on the tin, but you have to understand the writing. So anyone who knows how to code can look at these applications and understand what they do. If you've got a friend that codes, you can ask them.
If I don't have a friend that codes, I can't get into this?
Get one. No, but if you ask me, there's going to be an industry, just like we have industries today. We have companies today that assess the value of assets and companies and credit agencies and so on. There will be experts that will help other people to understand the risks of these applications and contracts. The beautiful thing about them is that they're all out there in the open, unlike financial institutions today where you can't see what's inside. You have to take somebody's word for it, an auditor or someone like that. You have to take somebody's word for what's going on inside. With these, you don't. You can actually, if you learn it, if you understand the technology a little bit, or you know someone who does, you can see it all. They can't do anything that's not in the rules that are set out in the first place. And they can't change the rules once you put your money in there. Again, it's part of what makes this technology secure and potentially useful and reliable and trustworthy. People will wise up, right? They will get more familiar with it over time. And start to understand some of the risks. And there'll probably be some regulation as well to protect people from actors like Sam Bankman-Fried.
Right. And so that kind of leads me nicely into my last question. So we met 8 years ago, 2015. It's now, when this episode comes out, should be 2023. So the past 8 years, we're just kind of building this stuff, building the infrastructure. You've seen it almost kind of being hijacked by these, bad crypto actors. In 8 years' time, when we talk again, what are kind of the things that you hope applied blockchain will be working on?
The area that we focused on is bridging what we call Web 2, or the existing accounts and places where our data is held as individuals and as companies, with the wonders of the blockchain technology and efficiency, the blockchain networks themselves.
So do you think, you're going to become like the Cisco of the blockchain world, or the Oracle of the blockchain world?
That would be nice.
Perfect. Adi, this has been great. Thank you for your time and your patience. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back soon with more dejargonizations. In the meantime, check out my newsletter, thedejargonizer.substack.com. The Dejargonizer is produced and edited by Astrid Landon.